to Bill Flynn in the morning.
All right, we're going to be loving some lawn in the next few minutes here with GrowinGreen. GrowinGreen.com, 1-866-LAWN HELP. And help us get a grasp on things. Tommy Cowett's in the house. Hey, Tommy.
Good morning, Bill.
How was your weekend?
Awesome.
Good. Now, the grass is loving, I'm guessing, what we were having with the weather, even though you and I probably are less than thrilled with it. But this is primo weather for the time of year. If you've just seeded, this is spectacular.
It is great. We just put out our research plots on Friday on an unirrigated area. You know, kind of waiting and going late. There's no trees to worry about for leaves or anything, but we laid out our test plots for a study we're doing on soil amendments.
Then we say we. Who is the we?
GrowinGreen at our
You're doing
facility
your own
there.
research.
Oh, yeah, we do a lot of research at the facility there in Kernersville.
So you got a patch of land, and you're just trying different
We do.
seed.
We have two sides of our building.
Mm-hmm.
There's one side is the warm season side. It's all Bermuda, about 100% Bermuda, and that's where we'll test products for the warm season program. On the right side of the building, there's another about quarter acre of fescue that we just recently planted. That's test plots for various things from fungicides to insecticides to what we just laid out a pretty nice study on the soil amendments we use. As we've talked about the Miramichi we put on your yard. We've got a test plot for the compost for a calcinized clay product called Turfus that we've incorporated into the soil. Another product is just the old standard starter fertilizer plots going down. And then we're testing the Organics, which is a granular chicken manure with the concentrate, I've lost my train. The Organics, which is a compost tea concentrate impregnated on chicken manure, which is supposed to just be awesome. So we're testing that.
So you got these little square boxes or areas that
They're
are
10 by
lined
10.
off?
Each
Okay.
one's 100. It's easy to measure out. The protocol for each plot gets standard application rate. Then we'll use these assessments over the course of the year on a monthly or 2-week, bi-weekly. We'll be going by and doing these subjective studies.
When you say assessments and subjective studies, you're looking at, does it look good?
Exactly.
Is it healthy?
That's what it is. You're looking at quality, cover, color, texture. These are things you can quantify in your head.
Uh-huh.
You know, and usually people at NC State, these technicians get paid pretty good money to sit around most of the day, take breaks every other hour, and then they go out on those plots and do these assessments and then come back to the shop. And
Yep, checkout off looks good.
And they're working for a professor, and they're just kind of like moseying around, driving around in a state vehicle, and the other guys are all complaining about each other. Like the one guy would say, all he does is drive around in a truck all day, and he don't even do that good. You know, and you're like,
But the
right,
fact
Les.
that you're doing your own research, now, I've been out to your facility in Colfax, and I did not realize that you had these little beds of experiment going on.
Sometimes they stand out, like if we're doing herbicide applications, and we've done the Pilex, which we've talked about, the carotenoid inhibitor that turns the grass white after it's been treated. And then, people are like, what the heck is going on there? It's weird because they're set out in squares or rectangular patterns, and you see it from the road.
Well, that's fascinating that you're doing your own research so you know firsthand. And are you testing out various products and the mixtures of them? Is that part of what fine-tuning
What our
stuff?
rates, we'll look at the standard application rates. Really, I like to stick with standard application rate because we might have a manufacturer come by and say, hey, what are you doing? You're testing my product. I want to know you're doing it right, and then you could show them, look, here's the math. Here's what we did. Here's how we applied it. There it is. We videotape this stuff, too. I mean, you can look at GrowinGreen YouTube channel and see this stuff.
There's an old saying about as fun as watching grass grow. But really, for a lot of homeowners, it's a great delight. And certainly with what you're doing, that's on steroids, watching this grow and getting the measurements off of it.
We're having fun doing it. Now, at the end, you could take all the numbers, and you can actually run them in SAS, a statistical analysis software, or just run the means on these things and just you can actually and even Excel's got it, where, if you want to do a curve, a graph out what this is doing over time, and you can see the differences in the different plots, the different treatments. Very much similar to me when I was doing my master's degree, split plot design, where you replicate everything 3 times, and then you can pretty much get a lot more accurate when you replicate these things. Can this thing, the key is, can you reproduce it?
Right.
Will it happen again? Will it happen again and again? Will it happen in 2 locations? We don't do locations like that, but we can certainly see that, is this better than this? Hey, what's going on here? Did you see how this worked better than that?
Can you actually see dramatic differences even among just little changes that you're in the research?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes you can. Sure. Yeah, sure. Especially with herbicide applications. I mean, you could definitely tell the difference between one product, whether it's working on something or not. It's either going to work or it's not. And, a lot of times, we offer service calls, free service calls for our customers, because sometimes things just don't react or don't respond to the treatment if we're trying to clean up a lawn.
This is totally fascinating to me that you've got that level of experiment and experience going on, and this is an ongoing research project. I mean, this is going to not stop.
It's also
right?
for the health of the company. We really need to test the things we're using. I mean, especially herbicides and things like that, to make sure we're not, causing any environmental impacts that we do not foresee, we don't want, because you can't really trust the government and the EPA. We've seen that happen before, where they've put out a product that causes problems. And, don't trust them. I mean, you can't. You've really got to verify everything.
That's the whole thing. Ronald Reagan said, trust but verify. A friend of mine is a former principal, David Fitzpatrick, said, to get what you expect, you have to inspect. And to inspect, it may require exactly what you're doing.
We're doing that, and if we get a manufacturer comes in and is boasting, oh, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, you got to get on board. This is the greatest thing. It's going to revolutionize you. You're going to be way above everybody else. And you're like, we'll see. We got to verify that.
It's not irrigated, so you're just getting natural sun,
sure.
natural water?
So this tells the story,
yeah.
And whether these amendments are actually, which ones are helping us, and it'll really, the true telltale signs will be next summer when we go to see how they're making it through, the summer. Because everything, I tell everybody, everything we do from September 1st through the end of May is all to get you through June, July, and August usually.
Yeah, and if you've done your work,
fescue, that is.
If you've done your work and you've monitored it well, when those rough days of grass existence come and hit, as we know they will, you got a much better chance of making it through remarkably well. We talked about your lawn and how you did so well during even some drought time here.
Oh, my lawn's an iron lawn.
Beautiful.
It's just beautiful. It's awesome.
All right, we're going to take a short break and come back. It is the Love Your Lawn Hour. You got a question for Tommy Cowett and Growing Green? 896-1980.
Call now. The number is 896-1980. AM 980, The Eagle.
Good morning. It is 9:20, 20 minutes after 9. A lot of times when we talk about our lawns, by the way, Growing Green in the house this morning. Tommy Cowett with Growing Green, the website.
Good morning. I was up late watching them Carolina Panthers.
You weren't alone. I heard some other people saying, I lost so much sleep, but...
oh, my God. But look at the field. Tommy Vaughn, he's the superintendent down there of that field. And I got a tour of Panther Stadium back earlier this spring.
What did you learn from your recent tour?
Well, it was actually back with the Sports Turf Managers Association of North Carolina, which we are members, and that's a lot of athletic directors from high schools, and actually Tommy Vaughn, he's the superintendent there.
Was anybody, by the way, predicting 7-0 for the Panthers at this point?
Well, hoping. They got the brand new scoreboard. That was fascinating. That thing's like 6 stories tall. If you could just see those new scoreboards, and they redid all the inside, so that was kind of it. The field looked terrible at the time. And, of course,
why was it looking terrible? Is it just a cycle of usage?
Yeah, I mean, the thing gets resodded several times a year. And, he's not really, at that point in time, they're not using it. It was, kind of staging ground for bringing in a lot of this heavy equipment. So, really, it was field under repair, not being used. So, hey, don't mess with it here. He's got a budget for these things. Now, he does have other things going on. Had to get ready for a big soccer tournament that they have and some other things, other events. But, wow, what a great tour, and just around the whole complex. It's like 40 acres downtown Charlotte they have.
Uh-huh.
So we got a tour of the AstroTurf fields that he's got, the practice facility, which is out downtown Charlotte. You'd never know it was there. It's really a beautiful campus, the whole thing. I mean, it's 40 acres.
How does the practice field, the AstroTurf practice field, compare to the one we see when we're watching a game at Panther Stadium?
Well, it's really more of a practice field. If they're going to be playing, like, say, Atlanta Falcons, and that's indoors, or the New Orleans Saints, they really need to play on practice on that surface. Next to that AstroTurf practice field, they've got a regular Bermuda field as well.
Mm-hmm.
That they
real
practice
grass
on.
Bermuda
Yeah, real
field.
grass Bermuda. I believe they practice down at Wesleyan College.
And tell me what's
University
when
down
we're
in
watching
South Carolina.
when we're watching a Panthers game. What are we looking at in the stadium now that you're so excited
Right now, you're
about?
looking at Bermuda grass, overseeded with ryegrass, and I think he's going to pull it and re-sod it probably at this point after last night, at least between the hashes down the middle, because it does get sodded once throughout the season, I believe, one time. So it's about ready to go. They need to go ahead and re-sod it, and depending on when their next game is. But he will resod that field.
I find it real interesting because I know you've talked about the comparison between artificial turf and the real thing, and how artificial is anything but set it and forget it. The high maintenance that's required for artificial. What is their view of, if they could push a button, would they go all natural Bermuda like we're seeing on the stadium? If they could do it across the NFL franchises, would they all want to go natural?
Well, some of them can. Of course, their stadiums indoors, like Minnesota Vikings. But I toured the Minnesota Vikings stadium years ago and got to tour that AstroTurf field. And the gentleman who was the superintendent at the time came from the old Met Stadium where he was growing that Marion, Kentucky bluegrass. And he said, man, I'd love to be doing that. It's half the maintenance that it takes to take care of that indoor stadium.
And that's something.
Yeah. It's just a matter of preference. There are people who are attempting to grow turf indoors.
I was just going to ask you, what technologies are we
Right. We're talking about
approaching
keeping
now?
your field out on a parking lot, basically, and even verticut. I mean, actually set the pallets of the grass growing up on this vertical wall and leave it outside, right? And then when it's time for game time, you bring the modules in, which are like pallets, and put the whole thing together like a carpet, like a Lego puzzle or something.
Right before game time.
Right before
Because you
game.
can't
Get
leave
ready.
it there a long time, otherwise it'll start to atrophy.
It's just not going to grow indoors. Now, they probably even thought about lighting. There's all kinds of people brainstorming trying to grow real grass indoors.
We do know that some things flourish with indoor growing.
Well,
I mean, the marijuana industry that you never hear about.
I suppose they could bring in some of that lighting, but then again, you're talking about, they've got multiple uses for those facilities. They'll be used for other things other than the football games. So, get that thing out of the way. We got to bring in the circus, or we got to bring in this motocross game or race, whatever it is. So, I mean, those motocross races, that's crazy, bringing in all that soil.
It amazes me.
Oh, yeah.
Those things get done. But I do find it really very intriguing that this one case they were talking about hanging the sod up and getting direct sun in the air, and then right before game time, literally making the field right then within, a day or a half or whatever.
I have
before.
a picture of this wall of turf that it's a module. I believe it's in Austria. It's a soccer field, and it's in a couple of different pieces. And, they'll lay it out. They'll bring it out of the stadium and lay it on this giant crane-like thing that lifts up vertical, so it's not taking up a lot of space in the parking lot. So then this grass wall is there.
Fascinating.
It's crazy.
But it's almost like, I would expect it also to be tilted a little bit toward the
It
sun,
is.
like
It's
a mirror.
tilted toward the sun.
or
Sure, it's got a little
solar
angle
power.
on it.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, how do they mow that? And they actually were.
You would be the person to ask that question.
They've got mowers on cables.
Get out.
No, that are running up and down the thing.
Really?
I'm not kidding. It's crazy. I mean, people
you
are
pulling
trying to
my
grow
leg?
grass indoors.
You're not pulling my
This is
leg.
athletic fields. Hey, man, there's
That's
a lot
the
of
real
money in
thing?
athletics. And
Oh, my
the
gosh.
surface is very important.
It is. Yeah, it truly is.
Just like your lawn, you know. You want that thing
Well, as
looking
important
right.
as that field is, comparatively to the homeowner, their field, their lawn is far more important to them.
Oh, it's got to be perfect, you know, for some of these events. But, boy, all the rain last night, and that game was just great. Cam Newton was amazing. I mean, this was a really great game. And just staying with them till the end, and they finally won. It was just in overtime.
It was a great season so far.
But
for
the field
Panthers,
did suffer, and I believe Tommy's probably going to resod part of that.
By the way, you were talking last segment about these research grasses that you have growing all around the facility of Growing Green.
Sure.
And you mentioned that something in the breakdown I didn't realize. You actually mow these things. You treat them just like a standard lawn,
Sure.
right?
It gets mowed on a weekly to 10-day basis, sometimes 2 weeks. in
And
the
you see how it
summertime.
responds. Are you doing 4 inches or 3 inches?
Oh, yeah, 4 inches.
Everything's 4
Oh,
inches.
sure.
Great.
Mhm.
Fascinating. All right, we're going to come back and talk more with the Love Your Lawn Hour, and our expert is Tommy Cowett of Growing Green. And if you got a question for him, 896-1980. We're going to talk about fruit-bearing trees and others that you may want to have in your yard coming up on the Eagle.
Call now. The number is 896-1980. AM 980 The Eagle.
Good morning. It's AM 980 The Eagle. We continue with the Love Your Lawn Hour, and Tommy Cowett is with us of Growing Green.
Good morning.
Well, it was just, good morning. Just, let's see, Sunday I saw a fella, he said, I got to get on home and I need to go seed my yard. So, I mean, here he was Sunday, November 1st, finally getting around to it.
Hey, he's still in a good window.
Mhm.
I was testing the soil temperatures when we were putting out the test plots the other day, and we're still up in the 60s in the soil. You know, it doesn't really heat up much more than that. It's still, you know, right around 59, 60
And in the-
degrees. It's perfect.
In
I
the
mean,
dead of winter, what kind of temperatures of soil do you read the lowest
it can
to?
freeze. Permafrost on top,
will.
down below, you know, you can be down in the 40s and 50s.
Now, does that kill the grass or just make it go dormant at that point?
Oh, well, really, the frozen tundra, you're not really going to get any. Everything goes dormant, you know, and
But it doesn't actually kill the
but
grass.
we're talking seed germination. I
Yes.
think you still want to be up, you know, in the 50s, and
Okay.
for soil temps, air temperatures are still in the 70s. You know, with lows in the 50s. So we're still in a great window
Still
for,
there? Okay.
but things are going to start slowing down.
Feeling good about that. Hey, I'd like to turn tables a little bit and tell you and have you tell us about fruit-bearing trees. And it's really started with a visit to my son's house in Charlotte. And in his backyard, he's got these two enormous old-growth pecan trees.
Lucky.
And
That's
I went
awesome.
out on his deck, and I saw full-size pecans in their shell.
Oh, like store-bought.
And I said,
Oh, yeah.
I'll
Love
be
that.
on the deck. You guys go in the house and have fun. I'm going to be out here.
Oh, man. you
And
can
they
have
were
a
delicious.
feast. Oh,
I mean, just right off the tree, right off out of the shell. And but that's kind of a rarity, pecan trees. Tell me about them, what you know about them.
it probably wasn't always. I know a lot of the homesteads, older farm houses and things like that around North Carolina always had pecan trees around, you know, for basically food and shade as well.
Now, healthy pecan tree will give you an enormous number of pecans. I mean,
Absolutely. And you would want to plant more than one and have a profuse amount of fruit. And but I tell you, there's an old farm homestead down in Liberty we went to visit a couple of years ago. And the gentleman who was taking us down there promised us we were going to go home with like big grocery bags full of pecans.
which seems reasonable.
Sure. So we headed out under the pecan trees, and man, they were all eaten by weevils.
Now, how do you know, what is a weevil's disposition? How do you know you've got a weevil-eaten pecan until
Well,
you open it?
You see you inspect that nut, you know, after you've peeled it, and you see the nut, and it'll usually have a little hole drilled in it. And then when you go to open that, it's just going to just be nothing but dust inside.
Oh, man. Okay.
And most of this damage is probably done while that nut is forming. It's still on the tree. Hadn't hit the ground yet. And then when it hits the ground, there's nothing there. So I don't know if we don't offer a spray program or anything for that, but they're so large. Your son is lucky that he's got that. I mean,
and these trees, the branches tend to grow out pretty horizontally.
Sure,
on
they make
the
a
pecan
great
trees.
shade tree. They can be kind of messy. Even like the when you look at black walnut, that's a tough tree to landscape with.
Now, what is the thing going on with the black walnut?
Well, it produces this a substance called jugular, and that is it's like a herbicide, basically. It won't let any plants grow under it, or certain plants cannot grow where the jugulone is in the soil.
And we've talked about that with other varieties of trees as well, something similar to that, right?
It's I guess you'd call it an allelopathy, where this plant is actually producing its own defense against other plants growing under it, where it's actually got a defense against something growing near it and uses a defense. Jugulone is a really good example of that with the black walnut. And I brought you some persimmons here.
I'm looking at these. Look like orange tomatoes or something.
They're giant Chinese persimmons. Came from Ellen Ashley's garden. She's got 2 or 3 of these trees, and these stand out like crazy this time of year. They're great in the fall. You can do a lot with these. They taste like a papaya. So I'm going to give you these and just peel them. I've been peeling them and eating them just like you would like a plum.
Now, when you say persimmon, I think a lot of people think of the standard smaller North Carolina variety that you see. And, in fact, there's a festival that comes around every year. Gene Stafford has it at his farm in Guilford County. He's going to be joining us on the show later this week to talk about it. But these are a different order of persimmon here.
Well, the tree is primarily grown as an ornamental tree for its beauty. It's a smaller tree. It's not like the native persimmons that are around here you find on the edge of farm fields, and hunters will set up their deer stand kind of close to it, knowing it's going to lure in some deer to eat the fruits that are on the ground. Those are very messy, too. I don't think too many people have persimmon trees in their yard. They're very messy when they start to drop that fruit. These are beautiful. I mean, they hang like ornaments in the fall. They're gorgeous, but they're so edible and so delicious. Like I said, it tastes sweet like a papaya. It's almost very
I can't wait to try it.
Caribbean. Make a chutney out of this or whatever. Just eat them. Peel them and eat them. They have a tougher skin, more of a thicker rind than, say, like an apple, but just slightly.
But these grow well in North Carolina climate?
Excellent in North Carolina.
They sure look that way.
And they're huge. I mean, one fruit, God, that thing weighs about a half a pound.
That's if you can hear on the phone, we got a caller, Jeff, checking in with us this morning.
Okay, great.
Jeff, welcome to the Love Your Lawn Hour. And did you have a question for Tommy about our fruit-bearing trees and what have you?
Yes. Morning, guys. I've got a plum tree, and it's getting kind of big. I gotta trim it back, but it has these little clumps of sap all over it.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not really sure whether I should try to cut it, if it's trying to heal itself, or what's going on. And also, what do you know about mushrooms?
Well, to talk about the purple leaf plum, they are plagued with fungus problems in this area. Number one, they don't like the heat of North Carolina. I know it's a beautiful tree, but that sap, it's got a canker, and it's bleeding cankers on that, and it's producing this sap is coming out. Gummosis is occurring on that. That's what they call that. You can put it on a fungicide program, but you want to spray early in the spring. And then you're pretty much gold, or you just set it and forget it. Now, if it's got the cankers really bad, I don't know if it's savable. I'd have to come take a look at it and see if we might be able to help you.
Hold that thought, and we'll continue with your answer on that and the mushroom question as well. On AM 980, The Eagle, 943, the Love Your Lawn Hour with Growing Green.
Call now. The number is 896-1980. AM 980, The Eagle.
Good morning. We continue with our segment this morning, the Love Your Lawn Hour. Tommy Cowett with Growing Green is with us this morning, and we got on an interesting, I think, tangent about fruit-bearing trees, and you were just giving some good information. about plum trees in North Carolina, and you've uncovered this this sap that was knotting up on the plum tree, according to our caller Jeff, that he has on his lawn there.
He's got a disease called black knot, and it's a fungal disease, a pathogen, and it's really when these purple leaf plum trees, I think they're more adapted to up north, somewhere New England area. It just gets too hot and humid for them here. Now, they'll do good for a short period of time, 10, 15 years. You can have a gorgeous purple leaf plum. Probably the best tree in your yard. I've known people that had it. That was the best tree. I mean, the most gorgeous thing in their yard were those purple leaf plums. And as they get a little bit older, they can start getting stressed out. And then
they can have a 15-year run and do fine, and then start showing fatigue.
And then you start seeing fatigue. Now, we've got quite a few customers that are on this spray program for the black knot. But you got to get it as it's budding in the spring. You really want to get that tree soaked with the fungicide early. While it's budding out, while it's leafing out, you got to get it at that point, and then it'll stay protected for pretty much the entire year.
And what about other fruit-bearing trees that North Carolina does pretty well? I mean, it'd be nice to be able to keep these things around, but what are some that you can almost, if you have enough acreage, that you may want to put some of these out there? What are some ones you may consider?
Peaches. I mean, down here in the Piedmont, they do great in the hot and humid, and that's living proof. Go down to Pinehurst and the Sand Hills of North Carolina, down
South Carolina, of course,
Condor and all that down, as you're heading down 220 toward Rockingham, North Carolina. Man, I mean, they're growing peaches like crazy down there, and some of the best peaches in the world. Windblow down. That was an area I did some of my research in NC State, was down in Windblow, and there's actually a variety of peach called Windblow.
How about that?
And that's down in the Sand Hills, down in those, it's windy down there.
Oh, yes. And so far as, and of course, persimmons that show up, and as we talked about a little bit ago.
You've got some wild fruit trees here. Now, if you get up into the mountains of North Carolina, we're growing great apples. I mean, but you got to get on up out of the heat and the humidity, or you're really looking at doing a spray program for fungus.
I also enjoy a really good muscadine grape can be even a nice touch. And,
no doubt about it.
Wild growth raspberries and things like that, blackberries.
Fruits, blueberries are huge around here. In this area, small fruits are wonderful. Strawberries, things like that. I mean, there's a lot of small fruit growers that do wonderful right here. Pick your own strawberry deals right around here. Of course, everybody's aware of that.
Jeff has been on the phone with us and hanging through the break there, and we answered your question about the plum tree. What was your question about mushrooms there, Jeff?
Yeah, hi. I know I did a little research last year on some mushrooms. There's chicken in the woods, I think they call it, primarily up near like Asheville and the Blue Ridge Mountains and stuff. And then there's another one. It's a white one. I forget, but I know it grows like on dead stumps. And I actually brought some into a chef in one of the restaurants downtown, and he told me they're edible. I don't know about the chicken in the woods if I've got those growing on my stump or not. They're kind of orangey.
I would like to hear an agronomist view of mushrooms and uncertainty, because I know you got a lot of thinking on that.
Sure. I never eat a mushroom unless I know exactly what it is. I would prefer a chef prepare that for me. But, yes, I'm intrigued by the same thing, the chicken of the woods. And believe me, I've watched a lot of YouTube videos. If you go to Paul Stamets, look up a guy named Paul Stamets. Now, he was one of the revolutionized guys back in the 60s who started to experiment with the psilocybin mushrooms. Those are the hallucinogenic ones, and got into a lot of trouble about it. But now Paul Stamets is an amazing guy who has produced now all kinds of medicinal mushrooms for everything from Alzheimer's to you name it, curing these diseases. Yeah. And, chicken of the woods, I've seen that. I've seen videos of people. You can get on there and look that up and watch people going out to the woods to collect them. Of course, man, I would love to come across some morels, or those are those really cool little ones that kind of look like a badminton thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming up out of the ground. They're brown, but you can make some awesome. Now, I would trust eating those because those are distinct.
Now, it's interesting to me because I know, for instance, say in Germany, in the Black Forest, one of the family traditions there, and it continues to this day, is to go into the woods and to procure a basket full of mushrooms and come out, go home and cook them up for dinner. Mm-hmm. But these are very careful. I mean, you've got to know what you're looking at.
You really do. Some of the ones that I do trust, if you can get them at the right time, just got to get them like he was saying that they were on growing on logs and things. Mm-hmm. And you can buy these kits where you can drill holes in logs and put your spores, little spore inoculators, really? Into the holes you drilled in the log. Stick the log under your deck in a cool, moist area. And you're going to get these mushrooms to grow, and shiitakes are available.
Really?
Oh, yeah. You can grow your own mushrooms big time.
Didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Just as a word of caution, I'm sure the research you have seen will echo this. Eating the wrong variety of mushroom, and some of them, unless you're pretty experienced, can look an awful lot like one you want to go to. But, for instance, I do know one of the things that can happen to you is even with a small amount of the wrong kind of mushroom, it can literally shut down your liver.
Oh, God, yeah.
And if that happens, you're looking at a death sentence or a liver transplant. So just as a note of awareness and cautionary moment, and that's just one of the things that can happen if you do end up with a poisonous variety that maybe mimics something that you routinely see as edible.
It's true. The poisonous ones have certain telltale signs, they'll tell you. They don't have true gills, like a normal mushroom would.
And the gills are the underpart
underneath that mushroom. There's little slots. They're not true, and you have to kind of know what you're looking for there. I've been out in the woods with a professor from NC State one time, took us on a mushroom gathering tour, and he showed us a few of the ones that you can eat, and like I was about to mention was the oyster mushrooms. They grow on the sides of trees. It's usually an indication the tree's got some issues with maybe some voids inside, and it's got some dead areas inside, and that's how that fungus is growing there. It's tapped in with its mycelial, which is like a tube going into the inside of the tree, and it's getting its nutrients from that. But if you get them at the right time and they're really tender, then you can eat them. But other than that, you could feel it's like leather, shoe leather most of the time, and you wouldn't want to eat that unless you cooked it. Mm-hmm. I don't know how they would prepare that. I'm not a culinary expert, but I've seen people use them,
Well, this has been a fascinating tour of discussion on the program with GrowinGreen, and as we're coming up now into Thanksgiving time and looking at maybe some guests coming over, and maybe you've worked really hard and you've got some really pretty lawn. I sent you a photograph of my lawn last week, and it was just an incidental shot. I've been out there doing some leaf work, and but the grass was looking so great. What is our window, and where does Thanksgiving come in as far as us keeping some green around, do you think?
I think when you're on a GrowinGreen program, the lawn pretty much stays really nice and green throughout the year without going into peaks and valleys. It kind of just holds its own.
And that's what you're going for.
And that's what we want. We want a sustainable, healthy, environmental-friendly lawn, not one of these things that looks kind of like bluish green that's pumped up with steroids, and then it's going to crash and burn and get disease and everything like that. We like it just to cruise and be more, stable. And now when we start getting into the freezing temperatures, the lawns typically go off color, yellow out a little bit. And they're not going brown, but, that's going to happen for a period of about 2 to 3 months coming up. End of December, then January, February is when you really see that dormancy come to the cool season grass. Say it got covered with snow once, but it get a few warm Indian summer days and it'll green right back up. But then, end of March, mid-March next year, you see them start to really green back up. So
that's what we want.
9-10 months out of the year, your lawn is gorgeous.
Love that. We'll have to leave it right there, but I want to say thank you, Tommy Cowett, GrowinGreen. It's the Love Your Lawn Hour, And if you'd like to know more, GrowinGreen.com. You can also call them up at 1-866-LAWN-HELP.